FPL is finally back after that international break. Definitely a long one for us Irish supporters, but at least we can shift our focus back to FPL. In today's video, we're going to take a look at my GW8 Team Selection, and the bench boost is active. What is up everyone, how's it going? FPL Error here, and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. 70 likes on this video is the goal as always, so head on down there, give the video a like, and if you have any questions ahead of the GW8 deadline, drop them in the comments below. First off, I want to say a massive thank you to you all as I managed to pass 8k subs over the international break. I'm at this YouTube crack well over 2 years now, so this is honestly a great milestone to hit. And I honestly do appreciate everyone who comes to this channel every week, watches my content, tunes into the deadline stream. I honestly appreciate you all, and the road to 10k is on. Anyway, enough of that, let's shift our focus back to FPL. Here's a quick review of my GW8 team. 69 points to the game week. We did manage a red arrow. It was only a small red arrow, 23k places, and we're still inside the top 1 million mark. 1 point to note from GW8, that Erling Haaland captaincy return means we've now got 7 out of 7 captaincy returns in the first 7 game weeks, so let's try and keep this streak going. Looking through my team there, maybe with a few question marks around Virgil van Dijk, Bruno Fernandes and Gyökeres, and maybe even Ndai with that City fixture this weekend. With that review out of the way, let's move on now and start planning ahead for GW8. So before we get into my GW8 team, here's a look at your questions ahead of this weekend's deadline. We're going to start off with the elephant in the room, Bruno Fernandes. If you are an owner like myself, is it time to sell Bruno? Well, 2 returns in the first 7 game weeks is far from ideal, although if he did convert those 2 penalties against Fulham and Brentford, it would be a different story. And to be fair, in that Sunderland game, he was rather unfortunate not to return, hitting the crossbar in that game. But looking towards GW8, he is up against Liverpool and Anfield this weekend, and that Liverpool defence hasn't clicked so far this season. Only 2 clean sheets in the first 7 game weeks for that Liverpool defence, so I wouldn't be too surprised to see United getting a goal at Anfield, and if Bruno is amongst the returns. And looking after the Liverpool game this weekend, Man United are up against Nottingham Forest and Brighton, and these are teams who have failed to keep a clean sheet so far this season, so I wouldn't be too surprised to see Bruno amongst the returns in those games too. That being said, if I didn't own an Arsenal attacker and I could do a straight swap of Bruno to Bukayo Saka, I probably would do it this week. GW8 brought the first twist in the Arsenal penalty taker story, with Bukayo Saka stepping up and converting against West Ham. If you are a Gyökeres owner like myself, this was fair from my deal, as I brought him in my wildcard a couple of weeks back on the basis of him being first choice penalty taker, as Mikel Arteta said back in August that Gyökeres was the best penalty taker in the club. We can't take too much from this information though. Looking back at the West Ham game, it was Saka's 200 appearance for the club, so maybe he took the penalty to come away with some glory from that game. We don't have a clear answer as who the first choice penalty taker is, so we're just going to have to sit back and wait for the next penalty taker, and fingers crossed it is going to be Gyökeres who steps up and converts it this time. With Martin Odegaard set to be sidelined for somewhere in between 4 to 8 weeks, this means Eze is definitely on my watch list. He scored a goal for England in the international break during the week, and at minimum he will get Fulham, Crystal Palace, Burnley and Sunderland for Arsenal. So if you still somehow have Florian Wirtz in your team, Eze should be your man to bring in. With almost 250,000 transfers out for João Pedro this week, is it finally time to sell him? The short answer to that is absolutely not. He had a break for the international break as he wasn't called up for Brazil, and he'll also have a rest in between GW8 and GW9 where he'll be suspended for Chelsea's Champions League game. Looking at the fixtures for Chelsea and João Pedro, he's up against Nottingham Forest, Sunderland, Spurs, Wolves and Burnley over the next 5 games. I'm even considering captaining him in GW9 against Sunderland when he has that break without him playing in that Champions League game, so do not sell him, keep him in your team, the returns will come. If you are a member of the FPL community on X, I'm sure you've seen this Dominic Calvert-Lewin hype over the international break. Should we be reading into this hype? Well, on paper, he's got Burnley, West Ham, Brighton and Forest over the next 4 game weeks, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin is averaging 1.51 chances created per 90 minutes this season. However, he has missed 5 big chances in the opening 7 games for Leeds, and we all know he is injury prone, so I don't think he's worth the transfer in. Maybe a small bit biased, as I do have double Burnley defence on my bench boost this week, but I do think he's a transfer out waiting to happen, so I wouldn't go near him. So looking at my GW8 team selection, I have 3 free transfers available and the bench boost is active. We're going to start off with my Arsenal double defence. Raya and Gabriel, they're up against Fulham away from home this weekend, but they have a 64% chance of keeping a clean sheet. Fulham with some injuries up front, with Muniz out and Jimenez a big doubt for the weekend's game, so Fulham may be lacking some firepower up front, and that's why I'm confident of getting an Arsenal clean sheet in that game. Look at my other two defenders. I'm not that confident of Van Dijk and Senesi coming away with a clean sheet, but I am confident they can come away with some defensive contribution points. Senesi coming away with 6 DEFCONs in 7 game weeks, and Van Dijk coming away with 4 and 7. That Man United game is the perfect game where Van Dijk can get some DEFCONs. Semenyo, Bruno Fernandes, Reinders and Ndiaye complete my 4-man midfield this week, and we're going to start off with Ndiaye away to Man City at the Etihad this weekend. With no Jack Grealish, with him unable to face his parent club, I do think Everton are going to struggle on the attacking front, so it might be a small bit harsh to Ndiaye, but there's a small chance I might get rid of him this week. But we'll chat about my transfer plans later on in the video. With Semenyo surpassing the 60% ownership mark, it doesn't really matter how he gets on, but it's always nice to get some points. But we won't dwell too much on Semenyo. He's been an absolute beast in the team over the last couple of weeks. Looking at Reinders then, only 2 game weeks this season where he's come away with a return. I have owned him since game week 1. At least I did play him in that Arsenal game where he came away with that 9-point return. And to be fair, he is priced around 5.5 million. So at that price point, I can't really complain. And there's not many 2 options in around that price point, so he won't be leaving the team anytime soon. And Bruno Fernandes completes my 4-man midfield. Before the international break, I was pretty much set on getting rid of Bruno Fernandes, but taking that Liverpool defence into consideration, and with the fact United have Brighton and Nottingham Forest after that Liverpool game, 2 bad defences, maybe Bruno Fernandes is going to stay in the team. Little disclaimer, I am going to that Brighton game in 2 weeks' time, so maybe that's the reason I want to keep Bruno Fernandes in my team so I can cheer him on live when I'm at Old Trafford. João Pedro, Erling Haaland and Gyökeres complete my starting 11. We'll get into that bench boost shortly, but starting off with Erling Haaland, 9 goals and 1 assist in the opening 7 games, and he's just off the back of scoring a hat-trick for Norway in their opening game of the international break. He was then sent home back to City, so he's had an extended break ahead of that Everton game, and that's why he gets the captaincy this weekend. Maybe it's too soon to speak about that Jamie Vardy record, but he's got 5 goals in consecutive games. I'm sure he's got that eye on that record, but probably it's too early to chat about that yet. Looking at João Pedro then, I know he's out of form, similar to Gyökeres then as well, but I do think João Pedro, after that break during the international break, without being called up to Brazil, I do think he can start kicking on with those favourable fixtures for Chelsea. So let's see how he gets on in the early kick-off this weekend. And finishing off with Gyökeres, he has been fairly disappointed since they brought him in the wildcard. He's just off the back of playing 2 full 90-minute games for Sweden during the international break, where Sweden failed to beat Kosovo or Switzerland. Looking at that Fulham game, I do think it's a game where Gyökeres can do well in, and let's see if he is on penalties. Fingers crossed that he is. On to the bench boost then, I've got Dubravka and Esteve up against Leeds at home. I do only have a 29% chance of keeping a clean sheet. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but I do think Burnley can keep Leeds out, especially with them being at home. But even if they don't, Esteve has a decent chance of getting some DEFCON returns. He's got DEFCON on 3 occasions this season. Moving on to Mukiele then, up against Wolves. Sunderland have looked solid in defence so far this season, and Mukiele has got 4 DEFCONs in 5 appearances this season. His centre-back partner, Alderete, picked up an injury when on international duty with Paraguay. I very nearly went to Alderete, so maybe that's a small bit of luck going Mukiele, and fingers crossed he can get a clean sheet or some DEFCONs in that game. And finishing off with Caicedo on my bench boost. He shouldn't have got that goal last weekend. He should have saved that goal against Liverpool for the bench boost this weekend against Nottingham Forest. Caicedo coming away with 4 DEFCONs so far this season, so probably looking towards more of a defensive contribution return from Caicedo, but let's see how he gets on the attacking front. All in all, looking at that bench boost, in an ideal world, a clean sheet for Burnley would be absolutely beautiful, but if they don't, probably looking towards DEFCON contributions all around, and there's a good chance that Mukiele, Caicedo and Esteve can get some this weekend. So looking at my transfer plans ahead of game week 8, I have 3 free transfers available. Before the international break, I was pretty set on taking out Bruno Fernandes and Gyökeres and bringing in Bukayo Saka and Jared Bowen. I've had some time to think over the international break, and looking at those 2 free transfers, it probably is a bit of a waste of using 2 free transfers. We still need a clear answer on who that Arsenal penalty taker is. I'd be very annoyed if I took out Gyökeres and he ended up being in fact the Arsenal penalty taker. And with Bruno Fernandes, looking at that Liverpool game, with the fact Alisson is out, looking at that Liverpool defence, it is a game where United can score, and I do think Bruno Fernandes will be involved. So I'm probably looking towards keeping Bruno Fernandes and Gyökeres, and I can reassess after game week 8. But looking at a transfer I might make this week, it's just because Jack Grealish is out. I do think Everton will struggle in that Man City game. It might be a bit harsh taking out Ndiaye. He scored last week. He is on penalties for Everton. Everton's fixtures after the City game aren't that bad at all. I will want it for the Sunderland game, but just looking at Sarr, he does have Bournemouth this week. Fair enough, he has Arsenal in game week 9. maybe it's best just not to make any transfer at all and just roll. But this is something that's going to be in my mind up until the deadline. For now, Ndiaye is going to stay in the team. But if I do take out Ndiaye just because that City game, where I do think they will struggle with Grealish being out, Sarr will be my man to bring in. So that's how my team is shaping up ahead of the Game Week 8 deadline. On the basis of the bench boost, I'll be content with anything over 10 plus points. I know Man City is a televised game in Ireland on Premier Sports, but I will be keeping a close eye on that Burnley game in the hopes of getting a double clean sheet there. If you have made it to the end of this video, please give it a like, drop a comment below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are on the road to 10k subs, so if you are watching and you haven't subscribed, head on down there, click subscribe on the channel, and 70 likes on this video is the goal. I'll see you all on Saturday afternoon for a Game Week 8 Bench Boost deadline stream. Thanks for watching, best of luck for the week. I'll see you in the next video.